The unfound graves of Cleopatra and Alexander the Great. Cleopatra, Alexander the Great, their graves have not yet been found, did you know? However, it seems that the grave of the last queen of Egypt, Cleopatra, will be found. At least, that is what an archaeologist is moving towards. Cleopatra's history is vast. I will not write that history now, but history lovers are endlessly interested in her. People say that Cleopatra was impeccable and beautiful, but we have no way to verify this relative matter. The good thing is, she died just 30 years before the birth of Jesus. She ruled for 21 years. After her death, Egypt became a state of the Roman Empire. After her father died, Cleopatra sat on the throne, but she did not become the sole ruler. Her brother Ptolemy, 13th, began to rule Egypt jointly with her. But as it turned out, their duel led to a civil war. That was around 51 BC. Fortunately, Cleopatra married her brother when Ptolemy was 10 and Cleopatra was 18. Meanwhile, a new character entered the play. Pompey, the rival of the Roman ruler Julius Caesar, lost the war and fled to Egypt. He took refuge with Ptolemy, that is, Cleopatra's brother. Why? Because they were already allies. What did Ptolemy do? He had Pompey killed. Then Julius Caesar came and saw Alexandria, saw that Pompey was no more. Then he tried to reconcile Cleopatra and Ptolemy beautifully. But what for? Ptolemy was made to understand that Julius Caesar was actually in love with Cleopatra, that these reconciliations were actually just a sham, that everything would go in Cleopatra's favor. In a fit of rage, Ptolemy imprisoned Cleopatra and Caesar in the palace and besieged them. Julius Caesar was not a small thing. The siege had to be ended very quickly. Ptolemy died in the famous Battle of the Nile. Cleopatra exiled her half-sister Arsinoe because Arsinoe had conspired with Ptolemy. Julius Caesar announced that Cleopatra would now rule with another of her brothers. That brother's name was also Ptolemy, Ptolemy XIV. Cleopatra married him when this Ptolemy was 13 years old. Meanwhile, what people thought happened was exactly what happened. In secret, Julius Caesar and Cleopatra went a long way. Cleopatra gave birth to a son, Caesar's son, whom she named Caesarion. Whether it was at Caesarion's behest or for whatever reason, Cleopatra went to Rome, staying for 2 years at Caesar's villa. She could have spent the rest of her life as a queen like a Roman empress, but what a cruel twist of fate. Roman senators assassinated Julius Caesar. It was 44 BC. What would Cleopatra do now? She had her brother Ptolemy killed. Then she declared her son Caesarion king, and from now on, Caesarion would be her co-ruler. But he would have a new name. Can you guess? Ptolemy. Ptolemy 15th. Then the waters of the Nile flowed a lot, and Roman politics also advanced a lot. Cleopatra fell in love with Mark, the politician who claims credit for turning the Republican Rome into the Roman Empire, Marcus Antonius, whom we affectionately call Mark Antony. I won't go into the deep history of why and how. At the request of Cleopatra, who loved him, Mark Antony had his stepsister Arsinoe killed, and Antony started taking his military funding from Cleopatra. They declared their 2 sons and 1 daughter rulers of different regions. One of the 3 who formed the second triumvirate with Mark Antony was Octavian. Mark did not even know that Octavian was going to become the first Roman emperor in the future. Then his name would be Emperor Augustus. I forgot to mention another problem of Mark. He married Octavian's sister Octavia. but he did not divorce her. Octavia was his fourth wife. Without divorcing her, he got involved with Cleopatra. Later, of course, Mark divorced his wife. Octavian, the brother of his ex-wife Octavian, the future Roman emperor, expelled Mark's allies from Rome and declared war on Cleopatra. Mark Antony and Cleopatra fought together against Octavian's Roman army. That was in 31 BC. Antony and Cleopatra lost. Octavian's army entered Egypt. Antony committed suicide by cutting himself with his sword. Cleopatra learned that Octavian wanted to capture her and display her in a victory procession. So she poisoned herself and then died from the poisoning. People thought she had been bitten by a snake on purpose, but she didn't. Octavian allowed her ex-husband Mark Antony and Cleopatra to be buried together. Another source says that Antony's body was cremated. This means that if we find Cleopatra's tomb, Antony's tomb could be there, unless she was actually cremated. If their tomb is found, it will be in Alexandria. Archaeologists believe it may be in the city's temple of the Osiris Magna, great tomb of the god Osiris, in Alexandria. But another group of archaeologists says that Egyptians never buried in temples, so it shouldn't be here. A 1.3-kilometer-long tunnel has recently been discovered there, led by archaeologist Kathleen Martinez, which is believed to be another step towards finding Cleopatra's tomb. Coins depicting Cleopatra and Alexander the Great have also been found there.